Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about Fnatic, Valorant's first back-to-back international tournament winners. So they finally did it. Finally, in Valorant esports, we have a team that has won not one, but two tournaments, and not only that, won them back-to-back. And honestly, the fact that it's Fnatic, I was not surprised in the slightest. This is a very, very good team that has shown strides of greatness throughout their entire history in Valorant and just weren't able to get over the hump. But then they do it at lock-in, and then they do it again at Masters Tokyo. They've had some heartbreaking losses, some weak performances when they had to come up big, but now this is a team that could potentially be Valorant's very first dynasty. Dynasties in esports are kind of weird because dynasty means 3 championships in 5 years, but esports generally has more than just one championship given out per year. With Valorant, it's generally 3. But if they win champions, I absolutely would call them a dynasty, and if they continue to win after that, I would also say that. So let's look at how they did it. On this board, I have their performance in both Lock-In and Masters Tokyo. We're going to go through it and see if we can draw parallels into each tournament and what maybe changed after that, and what maybe changed in between each tournament, and how this team has improved. First off, we're looking at Lock-In, which of course took place in Sao Paulo, where they took down the hometown team Loud to take home the championship. And in that tournament, they won 12 maps and they lost 2. And those 2 maps only came from Loud. They almost swept Loud. They almost had a perfect tournament. And then Loud had a crazy comeback and made it extremely difficult on Fnatic. Watching that match, it looked like it potentially could have been the worst choke of Valorant history, and it would have been extremely hard to top going forward. They absolutely had Loud right in the palm of their hand, and it just looked like it just slipped away. And that would have been typical Fnatic. Time and time again, this team cracked under pressure. They've always had an amazing roster. They've always had star players, great IGLing from Boaster. They've had every key that you need to build a championship team. They just could never put it together. And it seemed like their main problem was up here. They just didn't seem to have the mental strength to really push through when the times got tough. But they learned how to do it, and they learned how to do it in the best timing possible, because that's what happened in Lock-In. They ended up winning that last map. Very close game, but they did take it. And for each tournament on the board, I highlighted one map from the tournament that they did very well on. Not saying that these maps are their best maps, that's a whole other discussion. These are just maps that in these particular tournaments, they did very well on. And for Lock-In, that was Fracture. Attack percentage was 64% win rate, and their defense win percentage was 73%. Super solid numbers across the board. Very good. And as I said, they only lost 2 maps, so every other map they were 100% win rate on, aside from the 2 that they lost, which was Split and Lotus, but they learned how to do very well on Lotus very quickly after that. And the teams that they went through to get to their championship, they defeated Sentinels, Furia, 100 Thieves, Na'Vi, and Loud. Again, not dropping a single map for any team except for Loud. And these are some very impressive wins. Sentinels, they ended up not having as good of a roster as we all thought they were going to. Furia, they had a pretty solid season at points, so they were a pretty tough team. And 100 Thieves looked like they could be the only North American representative in the top 4 of Lock-In. Unfortunately, it did not happen. Fnatic shut that down real quick. Na'Vi, a very, very talented team. The FPX roster from last year plus CNED, very solid players, took them down. And then Loud, which was their toughest match, which I have right below here. It was easily the toughest match, and it really taught these players how to win, because that was always their problem. They had so much talent. You know, like you have Durka, who's one of the best players in the entire world. You have Boaster, who's one of the best IGLs in the entire world. And then you have a great surrounding roster of Leo, Alphair, and Chronicle coming into this year. Chronicle, a player that had won before being on Gambit. Great experience brought to the team, and he performed very well in that tournament. And with this help, they learned how to win, and they did very, very well in the Lock-In tournament. Looking at each player's individual stats, these are ranked by average combat score throughout the whole tournament. 58 assists for a KD ratio of 1.24, very solid, and an average combat score of 256. Great numbers from the board. It's Durka, you know what you're getting. Up next was Leo, who was very good during that tournament as well, having a better KD ratio than Durka actually, with a 1.41. His kills were 243 to 172 deaths and 100 assists. Very good work from Leo there. An average combat score of 225. Solid performance from him overall. He's a great player. And then the aforementioned Chronicle, 218 kills, 198 deaths, 135 assists, which is top of the team, a KD ratio of 1.1, which is pretty decent, and then an average combat score of 202. And then at the bottom of the stat line, but make no mistake, Boaster is very important to this team. He had 196 kills, 204 deaths, 125 assists, second on the team, KD ratio of 0.96, and an average combat score of 188. You don't go to Boaster for kills. You go to Boaster for extremely, extremely good IGLing, a great personality on the team, an absolutely amazing teammate. He has been this team's ride or die for the entire time that they've been in Valorant, so very impressive work, and I was so happy for him finally getting his first tournament win at Lock-In. So that was their first international tournament win. And then going into Tokyo, it seemed like things might have gone back to normal for this team. And I say that because after an undefeated regular season in the EMEA League, they lost in grand finals of the EMEA playoffs, losing to Team Liquid. And that's kind of what the story's been for Fnatic. While they don't always make it to a grand final, they had lost their grand final in Reykjavik, the very first international tournament in Valorant's history, losing to Sentinels 3-0. And then it just seemed like every time they got to the hump, they just couldn't get over it. And then it seemed like, well, they won Lock-In. You know, it was a single elimination tournament, easier tournament to win, and they lost their grand finals in their own league. So, like, is this team really that good? Are they really the undefeated best team in the world, uncontested, top of the league, top of the whole VCT? Well, kind of, yeah. They proved it at the next tournament in Masters Tokyo. They didn't even need that first place spot in the EMEA playoffs because they were already in the playoff stage for Masters Tokyo because they won in Lock-In. So looking at their performance in Tokyo, their map win-loss, they won 9 maps and lost 1, only losing maps to Evil Geniuses, who had a very, very impressive tournament and did face off again against Fnatic in the grand finals, and Fnatic swept them. EG gave them everything they have, but Fnatic, it just seems like now that they have the experience of winning, they're going to be really tough to stop. The entire tournament, they did not look nervous at all. No matter who they faced, it was just a bloodbath. They faced Energy, Paper X, and Evil Geniuses, facing them twice in both the upper finals and grand finals, and that, to me, was their toughest match in the upper finals. It was a 2-1 win for Fnatic. That was the first map that they dropped and the first map that Evil Geniuses dropped as well. Again, EG gave them everything they had, but Fnatic, they were just not losing that tournament. They were determined to win again. And the map highlighted is Lotus. Their attack win percentage is 57%, so pretty good numbers, but maybe not super good. But their defense win percentage is incredible, 88%. Absolutely great numbers on that map. A map that they lost in the grand finals of Lock-In, so very impressive performance from them. And fun fact, they have played Lotus 13 times. They have lost once. So after tripping and falling on that map during Lock-In, they absolutely learned that map very, very well for Tokyo, as well as the EMEA regular season. So maybe don't take them to Lotus. But what map are you going to take them on, really? This team is good on a lot of maps. Looking at the VLR stats, their worst map is Pearl with a 33% win rate, so not good at all there, but they've only played it 3 times. And they won one of them, so obviously you want that to be better if you're a Fnatic, but when every other map you're pretty good on, is it really that big of a problem? On Lotus historically, they have a 92% win rate. Fracture 67, Breeze 63, Icebox 78, Ascent 59, Split 61, Haven 63, and Bind 77. Sorry that I don't have these numbers on the board. This was a split decision to do this. But yeah, they're good on almost every map. It's so hard to stop this team. They are absolutely unstoppable. And looking at the individual stats for each player for that Tokyo tournament, Durka, again, tops the board for average combat score. He had 173 kills, 147 deaths, 42 assists for a KD ratio of 1.17, so lower than what you would expect from Durka, but still a very solid performance. And if you're a player in 1.17 KD ratio sounds kind of low, like, man, you are a crazy good player. And in terms of the VLR rating, they have 4 players in the top 5 on the entire tournament, so very good performances by every single player. Also, interesting fact about Durka. Durka did not play Jett the entire Tokyo performance. He only played Raze. So while he usually switches between the two depending on the map, just playing Raze, no Jett in a league where right now Jet is absolutely a very in the meta character. After the chamber nerf, she has become pretty essential to some map compositions. But Fnatic found a way to not even need Jet at all and have it work perfectly. Then moving on to Chronicle, we have 174 kills, 131 deaths, 91 assists for a KD ratio of 1.32, and an average combat score of 236. Chronicle having a better KD ratio than Durka is pretty crazy, but they didn't play a ton of maps. You know, they played 10 total, so the numbers will be a bit more skewed in that way, whereas Lock-In, they did play a couple more. So take that with a grain of salt, but absolutely great numbers from Chronicle there. Very proud of that guy. And in terms of VLR rating, Chronicle was number 3 in the entire tournament, but Alphair, he was number 1. I really hope I'm saying his name right. I'm pretty sure I am, but I don't know for sure. He had 184 kills, 113 deaths, 34 assists for a KD ratio of 1.62. Very good from him there. And an average combat score of 229. Kind of surprised that isn't higher, but very good numbers across the board from Alphair. And then we have Leo. He had 150 kills, 102 deaths, 94 assists for a KD ratio of 1.47 and an average combat score of 200. And then Boaster, he had 116 kills, 127 deaths, KD ratio of 0.91, and average combat score of 171. So while you would want those numbers to be a little bit better, maybe a KD ratio over 1, but it really doesn't matter with Boaster. As long as he's doing his job as IGL and coming up clutch when he needs to, it's fine. And just looking at some of the previous results just to see the kind of heartbreak this team has gone through, this is every international tournament that they've been through. First off, Iceland 2021, the very first international tournament of Valorant. They got second, losing to Sentinels 3-0. They got swept there. Each map was close, but they still end up getting swept, so it doesn't really matter. And they did not qualify for Masters Berlin, second place Curse, taking its first victim. But they did qualify for Champions 2021, hoping for a bounce back, hoping for a much better tournament. Did not happen. 5th to 8th was their placement for that one. Now, there is a bit of an asterisk for Iceland 2022 because they were without a decent chunk of their roster, missing Durka, Alphair, and Enzo, who was a part of the team at the time. And they were just incredibly nerfed going into that tournament. They absolutely would have had a chance at winning that championship if they had their full roster, especially if they had Durka. Missing him, yeah, you really don't want to be missing Durka. So unfortunately, they did not even win a map that tournament. Really not good from them. But then Copenhagen, it would look a little bit better. They ended up getting 4th in Copenhagen 2022. Saw a performance, but just could not make grand finals. Just did not happen for them. Looked like, yeah, they maybe could get it, but it didn't happen. They did lose to FPX in that tournament, a team that would go on to win said tournament. So not the worst loss there, but it still is unfortunate for those players. And then Champions 2022, hoping to continue off of the good momentum they had coming out of Copenhagen. It did not happen. They did make it past the group stage, but they immediately got knocked into the lower bracket by XSET, and then eventually lost to DRX 2-1. But that would end up being the last international tournament that they've lost up to this point. And I do have the EMEA playoffs result on here as well, just to throw it in there. They did play second, as I mentioned earlier. And the regular season, they did go 9-0. So this team that always seemed like they're one of the best teams in the world. I saw so many posts on Valorant Reddit before every tournament, Fnatic's best team in the world, they're going to win. And then they would just fail. And it would just look like, oh, this team's just never going to get it done, are they? They finally did, and they did it twice now. So very proud of this team. Absolutely insane performance, proving that EMEA is not going by the wayside. There were some very confident North American fans that immediately jumped on the EMEA sucks as soon as 2 of the teams got knocked out in the group stage, but there were still 2 left in the playoffs, and one of them won. So don't count EMEA until they're actually all out, because even the most random of teams can have a very good playoffs, but Fnatic was not one of them, because they are not a random team that does good. They are a very, very good team that I think I probably should have picked to win the tournament. I did pick Loud, and that did not work out at all. But overall, very proud of this team being the first back-to-back winners Valorant has seen, and they could potentially take champions. Do not count this team out. They could go for 3 in a row, and that would be quite the feat. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching. Please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.